All right, so before I show you what the law of cosines is, let's review what we've done so far. The first two patterns that we did were angle, angle, side, and angle, side, angle. I'm just going to do a quick recap before we jump into the notes for today. So the first two patterns we did were angle, angle, side, and angle, side, angle. That was just do the law of sines. That was the lesson where it was real easy. You just set it up, cross, multiply, and divide, get your answer. Everybody's good. The one we did last time was side, side, angle. That's the one where you have to do that analysis. So that flow chart, theta is obtuse, theta is acute. The opposite is smaller than the adjacent. You know, sometimes you have to drop down the height and find that. That's the annoying one. Okay, but remember, it's only for that pattern. The two that we're going to do today are side, angle, side, and side, side, side. Those are the ones where you need law of cosines. Now, I told you before it didn't matter, but I coached you to do it the same way every time because I said eventually it's going to matter. Today is that day. If you don't find your angles smallest to biggest, you will not get the right answer. The reason why comes down to how the calculator is programmed. Occasionally, and later on, I'll be able to explain this better once you've learned more of trig. There are two potential answers. The calculator is programmed to give the smaller one. So if you don't find the smallest first to the biggest, the calculator will not give you the right answer. So you have to do that, right? So here's your law of cosines. Here's what's about to happen. I'm going to write this down. You're all going to freak out. Then I'm going to give you a pep talk and you're all going to calm down. That's how it goes every time. Okay, you ready? A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of angle A. So everyone's like, Miss Cole, we have to know that. Yeah, but I get everybody through it every year and it's never a problem. Okay, here's what happens. Do you see how these two get repeated right here? B and C get repeated right there. It's just the same thing. And whatever side is here matches the angle at the end. So these two match. Because you can jumble up the letters and it means the exact same thing. Here's another version of it. B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC cosine of B. Because it just depends on what you're given in the problem. The letters don't really matter all that much. But do you see how these two get repeated right here? And then whatever side this is matches this angle. Could you try and give me what the third version of this is? Because you could jumble them one more way. C squared equals good. A squared plus B squared minus 2BC, just repeat those, cosine of C. These should match the side and this angle. So it comes down to what you're given. Again, when you go and do this on Delta Math, they call the triangles weird things like LMN, you know what I'm saying? It's like, don't get hung up on the letters and don't try to memorize those as be totally different things. They all mean the same thing, okay? So let's try the first one. Just draw a triangle. I don't care what it looks like. Just make it have three sides. Start labeling in the bottom left. So A is gonna go there, 61 degrees. Then go to the bottom right. Now I don't have another angle, so actually it doesn't really matter what we label this one. I'm gonna call it B. Across from that, we'll put 4. That means C goes at the top. Across from that, we'll put C, and then we don't have little a. So what is the pattern? And it's gonna be one of these for today. Yeah, and do you see it? We have, oh wait, I didn't fill one in. Oh, C is 6. There we go. Thank you. I'm sorry. Looking out for me. Side, angle, side. I was like, wait, hold on. I don't have another side. The angle is in between the two sides. So side, angle, side. And so that pattern is what tells you, hey, I need to do law of cosine. So let's make our little scavenger hunt off to the side, see what we're missing. Now you're going to have to find little a first because angle A is the one you have. Again, you have to go with what you're given. So we're going to find little a first. And then you have to do them smallest to biggest. So out of B or C, which one's going to be smaller? Good. Why B? You're all right. Why B? The smaller side. Good. So we're going to find B. and then C. Again, today is the day where it matters. You don't do them in that order. It's not going to give, your calculator's not going to give you the correct answer. It comes down to how the calculator is programmed. All right, so let's see, which version of this do we want? It comes down to what angle you have. We have A, so we're going to use this first version. All right, so it's going to be A squared equals, what is B? 4. So 4 squared plus 6 squared minus 2 times 4 times 6. Again, just repeat those. And then cosine of 61 degrees. Weirdly, the most common mistake I see on these problems is that people write sine instead of cosine. And I get why it happens, but it still cracks me up because this is the law of cosines, and people write sine instead of cosine, which cracks me up. Just make sure you put cosine then. All right, now we need little a by itself. So how do you get rid of a squared? Okay, so what you're going to type in your calculator, everybody stick with me, is square root of that entire mess. Thank you. Everybody's like typing it in. Good. I don't want to have to like scream at everybody to type this in. All right, type square root of, and then literally just all of that. 4 squared. Oh, what? You can if you want. I was going to type it exactly like it looks, but since you asked, 4 squared is 16. You can just put that instead. 6 squared is 36. You can just put that. You know, I mean, however you want. If you want to do some of it in your head, that's fine. Or you can just type it exactly the way it looks. The calculator will take care of it for you. So however you want to type it. Yeah, good. Compare with each other. Any moment of truth, anyone want to share before I hit enter on mine? And now you want to make sure that makes sense. The other two sides were 4 and 6. So does 5 seem like in the realm of normal? Like if you got 7,000, you would be like, whoops. Right. What's that? Oh, that's, let me pause this real quick. All right. Well, if you didn't have me as a teacher, not everybody did that. All right, so 5.359. Quick, hurry, capture it before it gets away. Store alpha A, enter. Hey, but Miss Cole, it's stored it as capital A and it's actually lowercase a. Yeah, get over it, I guess. I don't have a better thing to say. They don't have lowercase letters, just deal, okay? Store alpha A, enter. Now, since we have A, we have a side across from an angle. We can do law of cosines. You want to do we can do law of sines. You want to do law of sines, not law of cosines, because look, law of cosines is really complicated. So once you get a side across from an angle, that's what you want to set up. A over sine of 61 equals, and then we're finding B next. So it would be 4 over sine of B. Honestly, the hardest part is typing it in the calculator, is my opinion. All right, for this one, we're looking for the angle. So what do we have to type first? Does anyone remember when you're looking for the angle? Inverse, good, and you guys use the good vocabulary. Inverse sine, second sine, and then we're gonna cross multiply and divide. So second sine, everyone type this with me. Second sine, 4 sine of 61 divided by alpha A. And then I think it'll still work without it, but just to be thorough, close the parenthesis it started in the first place. All right, what'd you get for B? Me too, sweet, 40.745 degrees. Hurry, capture it before it gets away. Store alpha B, enter. And then for the last angle, you don't have to do any work, just subtract the other two from 180. So it's 180 minus 61 minus alpha B, and that will give you what's left. And it should be bigger than the other one because you're finding them smallest to biggest. I got 78.25. Okay, thank you for confirmation. Let's try it again. Or what happened? Yeah, so if you don't store, it's using whatever the last person stored as that value. But just hit up until you get it back and then store it again. All right, let's try the next one. Draw a triangle. I don't care what it looks like, just as long as it has 3 sides. B goes in the bottom left, 121 degrees. It obviously doesn't look like 121 degrees, but you know, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm going to put A in the bottom right, across from that is 5. C goes at the top, across from that is 3. I don't have little b. So again, what is the pattern for this one? Side, angle, side, good. The angle is in between the two sides. So SAS, so that is what tells you, hey, we need to do law of cosines. What are we going to find first? Little b. You have to find that first because you only have this angle, so you're kind of forced there. Now the other two, you want to do it smallest to biggest. So what's next? C, good, and then A will be last. All right, so here we go. It is b squared equals 5 squared plus 3 squared minus 2 times 5 times 3 cosine 121. So again, these two get repeated right here. And then that's the only angle you have. And here a lot of you typing it already. We're going to square root that entire mess. So don't worry about it. Your calculator is going to handle it for you, but just go ahead and practice typing it. And again, make sure you hit cosine. Weirdly, that's the most common mistake I see is people hit sine. And I get it, like sine is the most common one we use, but this is law of cosine, so just make sure you hit cosine. Now the other sides are 5 and 3. This one should be bigger though, because it's across from a 121-degree angle, so I'd expect it to be a little bit larger, but not like 200 or anything. What'd you end up with? 7.032? Okay. Quick, capture it. Hurry, before it gets away. Store alpha B, enter. I'm gonna pause for a second. If you needed to retype it, because I need to make sure you have that. Because if you don't have that stored, the next thing's not gonna work. All right, so we have that stored as B. Now we have a side across from an angle, so we're gonna do law of sines. It'll be B over sine of 121. And then what's going to go on the other side? Look at your list for what we're finding next. 3 over sine of C. Now we're looking for the angle, so what do we type first? Inverse sine, good. Second sine, and then cross multiply and divide. So 3 sine of 121 divided by alpha B. Oops, I hit enter before I asked you. Oh, well, I got 21 and some change. Okay, store that as C. And then you don't have any work for the last one. Just subtract the others from 180. So 180 minus 121 minus alpha C. This entire unit is basically like set it up, put it in the calculator, set it up, put it in the calculator. So got to be friends with the calculator. All right, so go ahead and draw a triangle for the next one. Although you can probably see what the pattern is before we draw it. Yeah, for this one, it really doesn't, because what's this pattern? Side, side, side. You really don't need a picture for that one. Do it on the test anyway, because I'm going to give you a point for it. But for this one, the picture's kind of silly because it's side, side, side. Now you still want to find everything smallest to biggest. So which angle are we're finding only angles this time. Which angle are we finding first? A, good. And then C, good, and then B. So since we have to find A first, this is the version of this that we're using. It's the only one that has an angle A. Do you see what I'm saying? All right, we're using that first version of this. So it's going to be 4 squared equals 10 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 10 times 8. Again, those two just get repeated. Cosine of A. Now this one is a little bit more work. It's not harder, but you are going to have to write like 2 more steps. Okay, you're going to be all right. Because whenever it was side angle side, you could just square root both sides and type that whole thing in. Here we have to get a by itself. So we have to do like a little bit of algebra. All right, 4 squared is 16. Over here, what's 10 squared? 100, and then 8 squared, 64. So 164 minus 2 times 10 times 8. What would that be? 160? Cosine A? Yeah, because 8 times 2 is 16 times 10, 160. Okay. Usually everybody gets there just fine. And then here's the common mistake. I've been doing this for so long. Is people will subtract these and get 4. You can't do that. They're not like terms. This one has a cosine and this one doesn't. What you have to do instead is subtract the 164 to the other side. You can't combine those together, okay? Hey, but Ms. Cole, that's gonna make it negative. Yeah, it's gonna be okay, I'll show you. 16 minus 164, that's negative 148 equals, and then what's left on this side is negative 160 cosine of A. It will turn out that way every single time, is you will get a negative on both sides. And so what does that mean happens to them? They cancel out. Perfect. So divide over the 160. I realize that reduces, but at that point I wouldn't, like, who cares? Like, just write it as 148 over 160. And then how do you type that? Since you want the angle, what are we gonna type? Inverse cosine, good. Second cosine, 148 over 160, that'll give you that angle. So when it's side, 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 you have a little bit more algebra to do, but remember you have a calculator and negatives cancel out, you'll be okay. I got 22.331. Oh, and I hear you saying store already. Store alpha A, enter. And now we can do law of sines. You only have to do law of cosines for the first thing, because after that, you're going to have a side across from an angle. And you want to do law of cosine, or excuse me, I keep saying that. You want to do law of sines because it's easier. All right. Now that we have angle A, we can set up a ratio. 4 over sine of A equals, and then look what's next on your list. What's going to go on the other side of this? Good. 8 over sine of C. Always go back to your list and what order you want to find it. And I hear you guys typing already. What are we going to type first? Yep, sine inverse, second sine, and then cross multiply and divide. 8 sine of A divided by 4. You guys are getting good with the button pushing. Second sine, and then cross multiply and divide. 8 sine of A divided by 4. I got 49.458. Thank you. Store is C. I like when somebody says yeah, or I see heads nodding. It's like, because I can type it wrong. It's like that happens. Now, no work for this last one. What are you going to do? Subtract from 180. 180 minus alpha A minus alpha C. And a way that you can check your work is you should have found them smallest to biggest. Like, do these go in order smallest to biggest? All right, we'll do number 4 and then I'll give you a brain break. You can tell from looking at this that it's side, side, side. Just draw a triangle anyway, because I'm going to give you credit for it on the test. Be like, hey, I get points for doing this. Oh, and I kind of made this a little bit of an easier problem, because what do you notice about this one, like what you were given? Oh, because I don't feel well and it's affecting my brain capacity. I'm sorry. So what do you notice about the information you were given? 2 of the sides are the same. That means 2 of the angles are the same. So once we find that, like, we'll just have the last answer, which is nice. All right, so we're gonna find, well, B and C are the same. So it doesn't really matter which one of those you find first, either one. I'm gonna find B first just because it's alphabetical order. And then you have to do A last because that's the biggest one. So if we're going to find angle B first, this is the version that we're using because it's the one that has an angle B in it. So this is the version of this that we're using. So it's going to be 10 squared equals 12 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 12 times 10. Again, those get repeated. Cosine of B. And when you have side, 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 oh, and I guess I forgot to write that. I sometimes forget to write it when it's side, 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 because it's just like obvious that you have all the signs. We're going to have to do a little bit of algebra, but you'll be okay, and you have a calculator. It's going to be fine. 10 squared is 100. On the other side, what's 12 squared? 144 plus another 100 would be 244 minus 2 times 12 times 10, that'd be 240. Cosine B. Don't subtract these. What do you do instead? Subtract the 244. So 100 minus 244, negative 144 equals negative 240. It will work that way every time. You will get both sides being negative, then they'll cancel. Divide that over. And I realize that fraction reduces, but you're going to just type it in the calculator anyway, so don't worry about it. Like, keep that one. So we're going to type cosine inverse 144 over 240. Did you get 53.130? All right, quick, store that as B and store it as C, because B and C are going to be the same answer. So you can go ahead and write that on both lines. Store it as both of them. Store alpha B, enter, store alpha C, enter. Now, normally you would have to set up law of sines to find the next thing, but we don't need to because these two are the same. So just go ahead and do 180 minus alpha B minus alpha C, and that'll give you the last one. 73.739. All right, I put these on here. I've already taught you how to find these areas, but it's been a minute, so I figured it would be a good idea to review them. The first area formula we had, and I recommend writing out the whole word area, because if you just write A equals, it could look like angle A. Area is not a long word, so just write the whole thing. Is 1/2 AB sine of C. But remember, just like with the law of cosines that we wrote out, you can jostle the letters around and it still means the same thing. What would be like another version of that? It means the exact same thing, but if you like rotate the letters. 1/2 AC sine of B, good. And then the last sort of version of it, 1/2 BC sine of A. Please don't try to memorize those as 3 totally different things. You really only need to know one of them. The others, it's just you scramble the letters a little bit, okay? So for number 5, we're gonna use this version of it because that's the stuff that we were given. Listen carefully. On delta math, sometimes they don't give you all the stuff you need. In that case, you would draw a triangle, do law of sines to solve for what you're missing, and then plug it in. Does this make sense? I handed you everything, but they don't. So you would have to actually work out some of the missing stuff using law of sines and then store it, and then you can do the problem. All right, so this would be area equals 1/2 times 5 times 7 sine of 35 degrees. Go ahead and slam that in your calculator and you'll get your answer. And that's cool that that gives you the area. That's neat that that works. Anyone want to share? What'd you end up with? So, good. I did not put units with this, but if there were, like say it was inches, your area would be inches squared. Good. All right, and then this one, when you have all 3 sides, this is what's called Heron's formula. Come up with some guy named Heron. Bless you, find this S value. You add all the sides together, divide it in half. And this one geeks me out that this works. Add up all the sides, divide it in half. Your area is a gigantic square root And underneath of it, you would have that S number times S minus A, S minus B, S minus C. That's the one you guys were saying, like you kind of remembered it, like you were like, oh, it's half of something. Oh, this one? Yeah, well, I guess they both have a 1/2 in them. So for number 6, go ahead and find that S value. You're going to add up those 3 sides and then divide it in half. So did you get 17.5? Good. All right, I'm going to assume you did. All right, so your area, draw a gigantic square root. Underneath of that, you're going to put 17.5. And then what I usually do is like leave 3 more blanks. You're going to do 17.5 minus each of those sides. So 17.5 minus 9. Oh, geez. Be 8.5. And then 17.5 minus 11 will give you 6.5. And then 17.5 minus 15 will give you 2.5. So you type that whole thing in your calculator underneath the square root and it'll give you the answer. But 49.164. All right, so the way that bearings work, you're going to start due north, which is up, right? I'm directionally challenged. Is anyone else, like, you have to really think about like I know north is up, but does anyone else have to like really stop and think about it? Like I know north, south, east, west, it's just, it doesn't come to me right away. I have to like really think about it. So you're gonna start due north and rotate clockwise. So I do think the bearings are kind of cool. And I mean, I guess if you were like on a boat or something, but anyway, here's how this works. A and B are 10 miles apart. The bearing, this is how it's written. The bearing of B from A. So you would start with A and like, here's due north is 60 degrees. So you would take that due north and rotate 60 degrees clockwise. Are you coming with me on that? Like I'm just taking my pencil and rotate, like you would go 60 degrees like this, which actually, you know what? Let me make that a little bit longer. So you would rotate 60 degrees this way. And how many miles apart did I say it was? So then this would be 10 miles. And here would be B. So that's how you get to one point from another. So you start due north, rotate the amount that they say, and then it's that far away. So that's like, it gives you like the direction to head. So number 8, A and B are 5 miles apart. The bearing of B from A is 290. Okay, so again, here's A, here's due north. We're gonna rotate 290 degrees. So watch me just take my pencil and rotate this. So if I rotate, sorry, my hand's in the way. If I rotate to here, that's 90, right? And then all the way down here would be how much? 180. And then we're gonna keep going until we get to 290. What would be the whole way around? Because that's so close to 360, I would almost think of it as like the whole way around, but back up how much? Like 360 minus 290, what's that going to give us? Is that 70? So this would be 70 degrees in here, or you could think of it as we went around 290. And so B would be here, and how far apart did it say they were? 5 miles. So this distance would be 5 miles. So now we're going to try a word problem with it. Martha lives on one side of a river. Jim and Ted live on the other. The river is 100 yards across. Okay, here is the river. and it is 100 yards across. Pretend that's the river. Use your imagination. So we're going to put Martha right here. I'm going to call that M. Now we have to find where Ted and Jim are. The bearing of Ted from Martha is 125. So here's due north. We're going to rotate 125 degrees, and that'll give us the direction for Ted. So if you rotate 125, that's going to be kind of like this way. So this is going to be Ted. Now we went 125. But watch me point to this. How much is this angle right here worth? That's 90. So how much is this little guy worth? That's 90. How much more to get to 125? 35. And if that's 35, this is also 35 because they're alternate interior. So this little angle down here is 35. All right, so that's Ted. Now let's find Jim. The bearing of Jim from Martha is 210. So I'm going to take this and rotate 210 degrees. That's going to put us in a this way direction. So Jim is over this way. Now let's figure out that angle. This one was 90. So if I go all the way down to here, the straight line is worth 180. So what is this little guy worth? If straight line's 180, how much further to get to 210? 30. So this is 30. And that means that this one down here is 60 because all the angles of the triangle have to add up to 180, and these are right angles down here, right? So this is the triangle that we want to focus on. Read the rest of the question. What does it ask for? Like in the end, what is it that we're trying to find? What is this distance? So it's a two-part problem. We're going to find from here to here, I'm going to call that A. We're going to find from here to here, I'm going to call that B, and then we'll just add them together. So try to just look at this side. You have a right triangle. 100 is the opposite, A is the adjacent. So opposite and adjacent. Are we going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? Opposite and adjacent. Tangent, good. It'll be tangent of 60 equals 100 over A. How are we going to type that? Good, good, perfect. 100 divided by tangent of 60. Wait, question? Oh, okay. 100 divided by tangent of 60. I got 57 and a little bit. Store that as A. Store alpha A, enter. Now we're going to do the exact same thing with this triangle over here. 100 is the opposite, B is the adjacent. So again, tangent of this time 35 degrees equals 100 over B. So type that in and get B for me. I got 142 and a little bit. Yes, okay, store that as B, store alpha B, enter. And then we want to add them together. So A plus B. And because it's a story problem, you have to put units. Was this feet, meters, or yards? I think it was yards, isn't it? Yards is how far apart Jim and Ted live.